Hello, my name is Mooncat and welcome back to another video, and today I'm gonna talk about the Temple of Relics and whether or not it is still worth building. Now the short answer to that is it depends. So the best way to figure out if it is worth it is to first ask, why do you want to build this building? Do you want to build it for resources, for example? Do you want to build it for antique dealer coins and gems, or do you perhaps want it for the buildings it produces? And depending on why you want it, the answer to whether or not it is worth it will be different. So to properly answer it, I'm going to use this spreadsheet that I've made, but don't worry, instead of just looking at this for another, 5-10 minutes, I'm going to add some videos of me picking up relics, because that's much more fun to watch. So the first question, is this building worth it for resources? So is it worth it for forge points, goods, units, and so on? And for me, no, it is definitely not worth it. With one exception, which I'll get back to in a little bit. So if we look at forge points, even at a very high level, so level 80 for example, it will only be producing 18 forge points per day on average. And that is not a lot. If we consider the size of the building, which is 6 by 6 tiles, so 36 tiles in total, 18 forge points per day is 0.5 forge points per day. Now that's about the same level as current event buildings. And with the event buildings, you don't have to invest any forge points to get it to this level. With a Temple of Relics, to get it to level 80, for example, you need to spend around 26,000 forge points. So without investing any forge points, for the same tiles, for the same squares, you will be able to produce the same or more forge points. And same for goods, you will be able to produce more goods. And even units, the amount of units the Temple of Relics produce is very small, only around 1 per day at level 80. So it is definitely not worth it for the resources alone. However, as I said, there is one exception. And that is if you have a lot of space in your city, and if you're able to complete, I would say, at least 2 levels, probably more than 2 levels of the guild expedition per week, I would actually recommend getting the building, leaving it at a very low level, even level 1, and then simply picking up the relics as you get them. Because even at level 1, this building actually does produce quite nice rewards. So at level 1, for example, if you complete all encounters, it will produce between 6 and 7 forge points per day. And that is not bad, considering that you don't invest any forge points, or hardly any forge points, hardly any goods in building the building and getting it to level 1. So if you have the space, I would actually recommend that. Get it, leave it at a very low level, and then pick up the reward, and when you need the space again, then delete it. And that's what I did, actually. Now, I didn't really think it through, but I built it, left it at, I believe, level 6 or something like that, for, I don't know, a year or year and a half. Then I deleted it for the space, and then recently I rebuilt it again, and the reason I rebuilt it was for the antique dealer coins. So, moving on to whether or not it is worth it for antique dealer coins, yes, I do think it is. Now, if we sell everything except for the kits to the antique dealer, you can see that at level 80 you will be producing almost 3,000 antique dealer coins per day. That's per day, so over 20,000 coins per guild expedition. So that is very, very nice. And even at lower levels, if we look at, for example, level 10, you will be producing a little bit over 700 antique dealer coins per day. Moving on to level 20, around 1,000, level 30, around 1,400, and so on, 1,600 for level 40, and so on. So you can see that the increase is quite linear with the amount of levels. So the sweet spot is probably somewhere in the region between, I don't know, 50 to 60, level 50 to 60, level 70 perhaps. That's probably where I would put it. Now, one thing you can do with this spreadsheet is that if you want, you can the way I use this building is that I use the store buildings in my city and selling them to the antiques dealer. So if you want to include that, you can do that here. So I'm currently storing and selling shrines of knowledge. And for that, I get 10,000 coins per shrine of knowledge I store. So if you include that, here we can see that for level 80, for example, my current level, instead of around 3,000, you produce around 3,700 per day. So here, if you want to, you can add that into here as well, into the spreadsheet. Another thing I have here, just quickly, here I have a return on investment. And here you can select which of these values you want to include. So at the moment here, for example, here we only have forge points. But if you want to include your value for particular coins, say you value it at, I don't know, 10% of the forge point, for example, now the return on an investment here will drop dramatically. Even if you value it much less than that, this will lower the return on investment a lot. So if you want to play around with that, you can make a copy of the document yourself and input your values here. But I don't really want to dwell on that. So back to the nice background images and so on. So for antique silver coins, I definitely do think this building is worth getting. So that brings me on to the last question. Is this building, or is the Temple of Relics worth it for the buildings it produces? And for me, this really depends. I don't really think so. Because first you have to ask yourself, which buildings do you want to place? So if you want to build a Gate of the Sun God and Face of the Ancient, for example, which can be quite nice for a newer city, then you can actually get quite a lot of these if you leave it at a very low level. So similar thing to the resources. If you leave it at a low level, you will be picking up, I don't know, close to one of these per guild expedition. So for those, I probably do think it's worth it if you're in a newer city and these are good sources of attack boosts for you. But if you're looking for terrace farms, for example, for that you need to level it quite far to get any decent amount of chance to get the temple or the terrace farm. And the way I think about it is that if you have that amount of forge points to spend on the Temple of Relics, do you really need the terrace farm? And I don't really know the answer to that. It might be worth it for you. For me, probably not, but perhaps it does for you. And of course, if you're only looking for the terrace farms, for example, you will still be able to sell all of the others. So it might still be worth it for you. So I don't know. It really depends on you. Depends on you. But just know that to get the Jade Relic rewards, you really have to put a lot of levels into it. And if you have the resources to do that, do you need those rewards? Again, I don't know the answer to that. That is up to you to decide. And one final thing that might be interesting to some of you, that is this building worth it in a diamond farm to produce Fountain of Youths? And here, that's an interesting question, because at level 80, for example, which is probably a little bit unrealistic for a diamond farm, but still, I just chose that because that's my current level on my main world. But if you have a level 80 Temple of Relics, you will be producing one Fountain of Youth roughly every 12.5 days. So what I did in the spreadsheet is that I added a tab here on the side. Let me zoom in a little bit. So I added a table here on the side. Doesn't look too well nice, but still. So here you can see after 12.5 days, at level 80, you will get one Fountain of Youth on average, and at that time you will be producing around 0.6 diamonds per day, or around 4.4 per week. So assuming you get one Fountain of Youth for every 12.5 days, here you can see how much your daily production will grow, diamond production from those Fountain of Youths from the Temple of Relic, and how much you get per week, and also how many total diamonds you have gained during that time. Now, of course, these are very rough numbers. Some weeks you might get 2 Fountain of Youths, then you will go a few weeks without any Fountain of Youths, but this just for fun, assuming on average. So let's see, after, let's say, a year, you have your production will be around 18 diamonds per day from your Fountain of Youths, around 127 per week, and Americans will be proud, around 1,776 the total diamonds for the first year. And then if we look at one 1 year after, the daily and weekly production will have doubled again to around 36 per day, 250 per week, and in total around 7,000 diamonds in around 2 years. So I don't know if this is worth it for you. For me, probably not. The work you have to do to first of all level the Temple of Relics and then do guild expedition each week on my diamond farms. That is not something I do. It's too much work for me, but it might not be for you. If you have a diamond farm where you are able to, or where you do a guild expedition each week, it might be worth it getting this to pick up a few Fountain of Youths. So with that, again, I have linked to this spreadsheet in the description if you want to look at it. I really hope this was an interesting video. In a couple of weeks or months, I will probably make another follow-up video with my stats in the spreadsheet, which I do update regularly. Here you can see my current stats. I rebuilt the Temple of Relics around 3 months ago. So here are my results so far, and I'm updating this each week as I pick up the rewards. So in a few weeks or months, I will probably go over my results, see how they stack up to expected results and so on. But for now, if you're interested, this is in the description where you can play around with the spreadsheet yourself. Here, for example, you can select a level, then it will display at the top here. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful, giving you hopefully some answers on the Temple of Relics and whether or not it is worth it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the future.